Wi-Fi 7 webinar. I hope you're all well. I'm Chloe Dixon, Sales and Marketing Executive here at KHIPU. Before I hand over to our speakers, I just wanted to run through a little bit of housekeeping. I believe this platform may be new to some of you. It's not your standard Teams or Zoom sort of webinar. So we'll run through our presentations with you. We really want to keep this an interactive session. So if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. That will be on the right-hand side of your screen. There is also some tabs at the top, so there should be a Q&A tab as well. So if you have any questions, you can also put them in there. There is a little tip box you can click to put that in anonymously as well, and we will address all questions at the end. Today's session will be recorded, so if you would like a copy of the recording, then please let us know. There'll be an email going out after the session where you can request this as well if you wanted to rewatch it or share with your colleagues. After the session, we'll head back onto the tables, which is where you were brought into. And if you wanted to stay behind, have a catch up with your account managers, we've also got a couple of the Aruba team here today as well, then please feel free to stay behind for a catch up. So I'm going to invite our first speaker, Nick Walters, onto stage. So, excuse me, Nick is the SE Manager and Channel CTO at Aruba Networking, and he will be taking you through AI-powered Wi-Fi. So, Nick, are you there?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Great to see a good crowd.
Nick, sorry, your camera doesn't seem to be on, and I can't see your screen yet.
Interesting.
It's all black.
Let me just turn it off and turn it on again, as the old saying goes. That's camera on and off, and that's share. Enable screen sharing, and away we go. How's that?
Yeah, it's still the same. It's still. Oh, I did have a thumbs up. Oh, we can see Nick. Perfect. Maybe it's just me. Can everyone see Nick's screen?
Well, you don't necessarily need to see my face, so I'm sure people will prefer to see the presentation. So as long as that's there, then...
Everyone can see your screen. It's just my side.
Right,
I'll leave it to it. Thank you.
Oh no, you can't see. Great. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We'll be discussing the IEEE 802.11be wireless standard, which supersedes the 802.11ax and is dubbed extremely high throughput EHT, which is more simply designated Wi-Fi 7 by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So hopefully that terminology is a bit more simple. I'll also briefly cover how HPE Aruba Networking has gone beyond the standard for more performance, more security, and more IoT to deliver immersive real-time wireless experiences for your users and devices. So let's get on with it. So I guess the drivers for upgrading Wi-Fi to meet today's needs for high-performing, high-capacity Wi-Fi is also complemented very much by the tools that we see managing this environment, especially AI-powered tools. And there's a lot of vendors now introducing these as a way to manipulate these standards. But considerations in your own environments, you may be looking at what is it you care about, what is it that you think you need to assess for the future. So this is just a tickler to remind you to look at those areas, and hopefully they resonate in some way to things that you'll be doing in the future, or if not now. But we also see the improvements in Wi-Fi standards have been evolving, and the primary network connection method for clients are converging to Wi-Fi. So the enhancements needed to support the applications, which are requiring higher bandwidth demands and higher density of connections of things, means a more proactive, predictive, and automated quality of service is needed, often enabled by management tools, like we said, with AI operations. So hopefully some of these, again, you assessed where do you want to spend your time? Where is it your teams or your operations having to help manage the environments? And what is it you need to assess, whether it's an end of support that's coming up on your current infrastructure, or you're just looking for refreshes that for consideration in the future. So let's look at what Wi-Fi 7 brings to us. So Wi-Fi 7 was standardized and finalized, shall we say, by the Wi-Fi Alliance in January. And we've seen a number of products obviously launch prior, but Wi-Fi Alliance is a key area for most vendors to get a rubber stamp from for their products to be sustainable and supported to meet the standard that's been generated by the 802.11b performance. But what is the 802.11b gives us? It brings us more speed, more capacity, and reliability. Now, it does increase to 320 megahertz of channel, meaning you can combine multiple channels together to give you much higher throughput. But yes, this is probably double what the Wi-Fi 6E standards had, and probably 4 times that of the Wi-Fi 6. But traditional clients, they're probably only going to be connecting at a maximum of around 80 megahertz. So in most user cases, what we have today with Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E gives you a stepping stone to where you want to get to with future gaming consoles that can do those higher bandwidth connections. But what else does it deliver? There's a capability called multi-link operation introduced in Wi-Fi 7. And that's the ability that if you have a client supporting Wi-Fi 7, you can leverage a connection on multiple frequencies, so 5 gig, 6 gig, combining the ability to cross different frequency bands at the same time for improved load balancing or more efficient use of the spectrum that's there, and better reliability as a consequence of doing that. We've also got 4096 4K QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation, and you might say, well, what does that mean? It's basically giving you more densely embedded data so you can have more clients connected. So each signal has about 20% higher transmission rates as a consequence. And like 6E, where we introduced 6 gigahertz, we also have that capability with Wi-Fi 7. So there's a 1200 megahertz spectrum in America that can be used, and because of regulatory confinements within Europe, Ofcom in our case, there's about 500 megahertz of spectrum available for use in 6 gigahertz. So that will come in handy as we see client changes and refreshes that are leveraging that frequency. But let's give you a use case. What is drive change? If we look at a typical use case, in this case education, hopefully it resonates with some of you, we can see from the perspective of a networking with differing priorities, often a split between the users, the IT team or faculty. And in this case, if we think about it from facilities management or Bursa of old, as you may recall. So each of those siloed sort of groups actually do come together in thinking about what is it we need from an infrastructure, what is it you care about in those. And I'm sure you've got many other priorities you look at in your own way for servicing an infrastructure that supports your users. If we look at Wi-Fi, we're seeing that obviously things are connected in infrastructures, whether it's wired or wireless. But a lot of IoT, Internet of Things, are converging with OT, so operational technology. And this is developing essential capabilities using a common infrastructure. So with the advancements in wireless standards, with Wi-Fi 6 to 6E and now 7, we can more easily deploy new services that benefit many EU and UK Gov directives. So I don't know whether you've been keeping abreast of those, but there's things like fuel, cost, energy efficiency, CO2 emissions, compliance, and the use of PCM, phase change materials. So how better to insulate the environments and be more efficient. So these can now be more easily measured with IoT sensing and or actuating. So if you think about it, you're not just necessarily using this to read information, but you may be initiating something to change it, whether it's just a light switch by kinetic energy or whether it's more efficiently turning on and off the light because there's no one detected in those spaces. a lot of this comes about because if you look at your current building management systems, there's a lot of pre-wiring needed. And to make and implement some of the regulatory changes that you need or government directives, that's a big infrastructure change. So how can you do it more easily? So if you can get a 5-year battery or a solar powered or light charged device connected to a wall that then doesn't need any cabling, and then use the Wi-Fi infrastructure you got as a transport layer, you're going to save dramatic costs on that infrastructure and more quickly deploy those changes. So one little example of this is a sensor that does cost savings for simple water flows. So Guardio have this little snap-on to your pipe sensor that can detect the flow of water. And if you think about large schools or corporate spaces with toilets, facilities, if you've got a water that's flowing continuously, the flush is stuck basically, and you're seeing that water just draining 24/7, you can see the costs of not only the amount of water that's wasted going through the system, but also the fact that there's a cost now associated to you for how much water you use. And if you count that up over a year period, that could be as much as £1,000 going down the drain, as they say. And that's just on one toilet. So these simple IoT devices are giving you gains that you wouldn't have even thought about in what you could leverage by putting a wireless infrastructure in place just as a transport layer. Just as a way of assessing that, if you've got your smartphones on your handy, and I'll do the same, if you scan one of these QR codes, you'll see that hopefully on your pop-up on your phone, you've seen like the CO2 levels, so the parts per million, and whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. And just hitting into the near part of the red, when there's not enough air ventilation in a space, that's like drinking a glass of wine. Your attention, your ability to concentrate, your ability to learn is out the window, as they say, because you're not being able to get enough oxygen to keep that concentration. But there's things like, if you scroll up, you've got room occupancy, temperature detection, humidity, light levels, noise levels. So those could be used for detecting if there's anybody in the room by noise or by motion, and then turn off the lights when nothing's detected in proximity. Also, you've got the water leak capabilities, the vibration, power, and you can see that IoT, as you scroll down, even the vaping or smoke detection in areas can be checked. So all of those give you a nice simple dashboard, a panel that you can create yourselves or get a third party to help you with, to take all of this information that you're being learned from these sensors and deliver it in a simple snapshot. So that's just a couple of examples for you. If we look at the evolution, hopefully some of you are familiar with standards, and you'll probably be familiar with 802.11af, 802.11b, G, and then we moved into AC Wave 1, AC Wave 2. When we got to AC Wave 2, I think the Wi-Fi Alliance said we need to simplify this. So they gave it new naming conventions with Wi-Fi 5. When we moved to 802.11ax with Wi-Fi 6, that gave us not only an improvement in the speed, so 4 times the speed of Wi-Fi 5, but it gave us new security capabilities. So we talked about introducing WPA3, getting more capabilities for doing multiple pre-shared key environments, so you can set up groups of users. So guest services can be more securely added. Wi-Fi 6E expands on the existing Wi-Fi 6, so it's all 802.11ax based, but the 6 gigahertz band gives us other efficiencies within the environment. So like Wi-Fi 6, you've got orthogonal frequency domain multiple access. So you might have heard of multi-user MIMO. So for those clients that support it, you can have multiple clients simultaneously transmitting or receiving at the same time if you've got like clients on that radio. The introduction of WPA3, things like target wait time. So if your clients are battery based, then you want some way of making them more efficient while they're connecting and communicating. So in those idle times, we can communicate from the Wi-Fi device to know that those have gone to sleep and return them back in a wake state when needed, rather than re-authenticating everything again. So this extends in the 6 gigahertz band to provide a more contiguous spectrum and less interference ultimately. So Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7 both take advantage of the 6 gig band. However, Wi-Fi 7 is based on the BE standard, the 802.11 BE standard, while 6E is based on 802.11ax. And with those features coming into Wi-Fi 7, I mentioned the 320 megahertz, I mentioned the multi-link operation, I mentioned the quadroterial amplitude modulation density for clients and throughput. We've also got some what we call spectrum puncturing to better accommodate interference in wider channels, because obviously you'll have overlap with other neighboring devices. So you've got to be able to ensure your clients can continue to transmit where normally half duplex is a single device talking at any one time. So as we see what influences us being able to use 6 gigahertz in both Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7, a lot of this is down to regulatory. So for us, this breaks down probably into 3 classes that are optimized. In our case, with Ofcom, we can make use of low power indoor. So that means that if they're integrated antenna for an indoor AP, 6 gigahertz is enabled when the products are imported into the country. However, for connectorized and outdoor products, 6 gigahertz is currently disabled on Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7 access points. And that's because Ofcom haven't yet allowed us to leverage those spectrums for those cases. We are lobbying, and we'll be looking for you as customers to hopefully help lobby those as well, but that we'll talk about at another time. So what does this mean in the bigger picture? I think for us, it's not just about Wi-Fi access points and frequencies, it's about how you leverage it, how you assess the performance within that and make it useful for you for future-proofing what's coming with changes in your own infrastructure. The security, of course, more enhancements. That's another reason for moving to later technology. We talked about IoT and what importance that may be in your environment. And of course, other aspects of this are things that we've embedded, like a GPS chip, to help better use location accuracy. So GPS now means we can get sub 1 meter detection with the spread of detecting where our own APs are, but also the client's signal to noise and connectivity to those devices, because we have an accurate display. So what this gives us is the ability to assess when you put a device on a heat map, you normally statically move it and put it on. So this allows us now to dynamically move, or at least get told that you've actually placed the device on the wrong floor. So we've got the 802.11az high accuracy, we've got the barometric sensors that can tell the altitude of these devices, so you know what height they're at in the environment. But with Wi-Fi 7 over, say, 6E, we've gone to dual USB ports, we've gone to dual BT, Bluetooth and Zigbee radios. We've got dual PoE, so that gives you the ability to load balance your PoE if you haven't yet got the latest standard switch. But also adding AI into the management gives us the ability to leverage power save mode, which means we can tell the radios to go to sleep when you're not any clients are in range. So this might be you've got set times of day when the rooms are not in use, so you can turn the radios and save power and look at the sustainability dashboard of how much power you've gained. So all of these are very much dependent on us working closely with ecosystem partners. And a lot of the standards with HPE Aruba are very much open. And the point being is that we want to work better with others. And this gives you a better experience in choosing what's best for your own environment. It gives you an API to be able to pull information, build that sustainability dashboard if you don't want to leverage our own, and you can look at some of those environmental capabilities with your IoT in those areas. And lastly, just looking at where we are as a product set, it is about how we've managed the solutions now. So a lot of it is about how our own dashboard, our own management solution, which is predominantly cloud-based, gives us that AI and machine learning, but it also gives us the ability to manage the RF spectrum and the clients, move them when needed more efficiently because we have a better holistic view of everything. It also means with our own product, you've got flex radios now. So it's not just a 2.4, a 5 and a 6 gig radio. You can offset where the radio is used. You could make it a 5, a 6 and a 6. And that goes down to a lot that's built into our patented filtering capabilities to avoid co-channel interference between our own product radios in the same closed environment. So there's a lot of initiatives we try and push into our products. Anyway, that's me done talking. I know you want to make this more interactive, so I'm going to hand back now and get a bit more insight from KHIPU.
Thanks, Nick. That was great. As discussed at the beginning, if you have any questions from Nick's presentation, please pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and then we will answer them at the end. I'm going to invite Justin Pender. He is Account Director at KHIPU-NETWORKS. I'm going to invite him up to stage, and he's going to take you through next generation Wi-Fi and how KHIPU can help.
Thank you, Chloe. I'll just share my screen.
Perfect. Nick, if you want to turn your camera and mic off, and then you can come back up for the Q&A.
Sure.
So I'm hoping you can now see my slide deck.
Yep, all good.
Perfect. So for me, there are many, I guess, facets to what Nick has just described on next generation Wi-Fi. But obviously for me, there are quite some fundamentals that if we can lay the ground in whatever journey you're on, from maybe you're on 500 series AP, you're going 6, 6E, or even you're going straight to 7, depending on where you are in the journey. There are some very core fundamentals, and there are 3 pillars that I like to put out there. It's the capacity, the coverage, and the investment. And all 3 core foundation pillars really are paramount to whatever solution you're looking to deploy. So if you understand your capacity, the coverage will follow, and then that ultimately has an investment tied to either or. And if you don't get the capacity right, that means you haven't got the coverage, and then in turn you've underinvested. And if you don't get the coverage right, that means you haven't spec the right type of AP, and then once again the investment hasn't been thought in that journey. So if you can in the journey of the cycle that you're looking to achieve, these for me are the core foundations. So if you get those and understand those in your journey, it will help you layer on top whatever you're looking to do. So I've just selected things that I would like to say are thought-provoking in how you are looking to deploy your next generation Wi-Fi. And if it is up to 7, then that's fine. But obviously there are other considerations. Is what are you doing around security, NAC, i.e. ClearPass in this instance, or your connectivity? Because if you're putting the capacity in and the coverage, then is your broadband connectivity going to be your bottleneck on your network rather than the actual wireless itself? And then beyond those layers, you then do have, is the network mission critical, and is it going to be resilient? And that has a ramification when it comes to not just the Wi-Fi, and I appreciate this is what we are talking about today, but then beyond the Wi-Fi, there are other elements, i.e. you're going to have a switching consideration to talk about. And then there's a cabling element that needs to be discussed. And how does that look from usage, if you've got enough cabinets within your building or units, or depending on how they are deployed across your campus. And are you looking to have on-prem or cloud services? once again, that has a dictation in where you're looking for your background pipe. So are you having a 50 meg backbone? Do you need that? Are you ready for that? Which then has a consideration not just around the cabling then, but then also your fiber, and then also client types. So we are looking at a business grade enterprise product, but the users will not necessarily have those type of devices. They will be consumer grade. And obviously what you don't know is, are they on the latest generation phones, laptops, tablets? So that is another consideration in when the network is being deployed or designed. We have to take in consideration looking at these types of clients and devices in order to provide, ultimately going back to the capacity, because there will be, in today's world, we don't just have one device each. We probably don't have two, we probably have 3 devices, including IoT. So then you have to consider a network that is capable of all the current connected devices at any one time. So it's not just saying you might have 1,000 students, 2,000 students, 10,000 students. It's how many devices are going to be connected to that network, which will then drive, going back to that core foundation again, the capacity, the coverage, and the investment that's going to be needed into deploying your network in today's world. And then going back to the same conversation where I said about wired and wireless. So if you're hard, depending on the number of APs that you need, as Nick alluded to, some of the latest generation Wi-Fi now has dual ports with smart rate. So when that is in consideration of the design, is your current infrastructure, your wired infrastructure, allowing you the capacity to grow, or do you need to in the path of your journey to create the next generation Wi-Fi? Do you need to look at your switching? Does that have enough port density in order to give you the resiliency if you need that? And then also, have you got the capacity to grow, which I guess is a nice segue into growth plan and expansion. So is there in your journey over the next, not necessarily today's world, but the next 3 to 5 years, are you looking to expand? Because if you are, through users coming on, or you are going to build a new classroom, a new theatre, whatever it may be in any environment, then you need to look at the cost of what it would cost to either buy and implement some of the infrastructure today, rather than not considering it until to the point of the event where you're building or expanding, because then there is a cost implication to that, where if you considered it in today's world or in your growth plan or your strategy, does that allow, or can you accommodate those growths? So that is another thing to consider. And then beyond all of this, you have the infrastructure, which is always going to be a conversation in any layer that you're looking when you're deploying your core foundation. So your copper, your fiber, your backbone, all this has to be a consideration when deploying any wireless network. And then in order to look at what we're doing, then the sustainability, which Nick also alluded to. Are you, or in your establishments, are your students underperforming because of CO2? Is a light on? Those things can obviously drive productivity for students, staff, and then also if you're looking to cut costs with latest generation Wi-Fi that has greater capability, then can you use an ecosystem of sensors to support you as an organization by saving money, being sustainable, supporting students growing, getting better results going forward, which all of this is underpinned by a network operations center or a security operations center. So all of this can be deployed, and we can support the deployment by, I guess, looking after the day-to-day running of a network and giving you the hands to go back and achieve more projects that are in flight. So we can support you around a NOC and a SOC, if that is obviously of any interest, which I have a couple of slides to show you. But ultimately, I think this is meant to be a thought provoking discussion where if you look at these core fundamentals, have you discussed, thought, looked at your growth plan and over the next coming years, because this will obviously ultimately drive you in the decision that you're going to go and make. But these are, I think, the fundamentals that will help you get what is right coming for you from the next generation Wi-Fi, if that is 5, 6, 6E or 7, and will have an impact in your spend and what you're looking to do over the years to come. So really, if there's any questions on the back of this, I'd love to have a discussion on my thoughts and where you are in your journey. I think it goes quite hand in hand with what Nick said about Aruba's generation of Wi-Fi and what's coming out there and how it's evolved over the years. So I will move on to another slide around our NOC services, but ultimately everything would be underpinned by what you're looking to do. We can support you moving forward. So just want to give you an overview, and if there is something that this does trigger a conversation, please reach out to your account managers. They're happy to take questions, provide you with a quotation of what our SOC services look like, depending on your requirements and where you are within your staffing. Do you have enough staff that can operate on a 24/7 or Monday, Friday, 9 to 5? Are you on a skeleton crew? All these things need to be thought about. But if I slow the next slide and we'll go from there. So there are different offerings. So it's really about where you are and what you want from your current network or moving forward. So we do have a 24/7, 365 day team of experts ready to support you and investigate any problems you may have. We can be proactive. We can give you technical assistance if you need that. But ultimately, we're here to support you, and just treat us as an extension of your current team. We're here to help, advise, and support you whenever way you want to go. Within this, there is network monitoring. We have a help desk, can do remote access if needed, with an automation with tools that we have, and we will support you with your current infrastructure wherever you are in your journey. You may not be at the moment on the journey with Aruba. If you are, there are services and support that we can offer you by having access to Aruba TAC or using our experts in-house that we can assist, and failing that, we would have to back it off to Aruba TAC if that was the case, if it was beyond the capabilities of looking at a bug, which would need an R&D to investigate where the issue is. So there are further services beyond the NOC, which we can look here of what you require. So you have NOC monitoring and Monitor Plus. Appreciate this recording will be sent to you so you can review it in your own time. But ultimately, if there's any services that's required from a NOC monitor or more Monitor Plus, we can help, which then goes into a co-managed managed service or fully managed. And the differences with co-managed, we work with you on a co-hybrid. We work collectively together to help you resolve the issues, or we can go to fully managed, where we will take the strain away from you and give you the time back to deploy other projects that are more pressing. But please, like I said, reach out to your account managers and we'll be able to provide you with an indicative quote based on what technology you may have or where you may be going. And we would like to obviously have that discussion with you guys further if there is any more requirements that you need. But as we've said, this is meant to be an interactive session. So Nick and myself have obviously provided our overview and our thoughts on next generation Wi-Fi 7. So if there are any questions, we'd like to open up to answer any questions you may have. So I'll hand it back to you, Chloe.
Amazing. Thank you, Justin. I will invite Nick to come back onto stage. I'm not sure if you want to stop sharing your screen. And yeah, I'll pass over to the audience for any questions. I mean, whilst we're waiting for any questions to come through, is there anything else that you guys might want to add about considering the move to Wi-Fi 7, security considerations that you haven't already mentioned?
Sorry, Chloe, It broke out then. What were you saying? Sorry.
I was saying, whilst we're waiting for any questions to come through, is there anything else that you might want to add on to your presentations about the considerations that need to be taken into?
I mean, just piggybacking off what Justin said, of course. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me when you're doing that review, and we talked about what is it next generation technology brings, but there's always going to be a bottleneck somewhere in your network. So as Justin was pointing out, when you're looking at the infrastructure, that's key to me. One of the obviously benefits of having faster and higher density devices is the fact that you've got to then aggregate that together. So we talked about smart rate. So for us, that's dual 5 gig Ethernet ports now going up to 10 gig smart rate. So do you have access switches that can support that? If you don't, yeah, you can still connect at 1 gig, but we have something called intelligent power mode that you can enable on the APs, which is a differentiator for us, which means that we assess how much power draw off a PoE switch you can pull that's needed to drive all of the extra devices, you know, dual USB, dual BLE, dual Ethernet, all of those things need more power. So we're moving from our traditional PoE plus, where you've had 802.3 AT as a standard, and you're moving to the later standards, which are again in taking more power with class 6 PoE and even up to class 8, 90 watts. Not so much an our kit, but you know, we do support CCTV out there, and those might be an IoT device in your own right. But then that means you've got higher throughput requirements at the access layer, which means your uplink speeds have also got to increase, which then means your aggregation layer needs to increase. So your bandwidths are increasing, and that means when you do a refresh, what is a knock-on effect of doing that, and when can you really take advantage of it without causing bottlenecks along the way or turning down services to avoid those bottlenecks. That was just a quick snapshot from me.
Perfect, thank you, Nick. I haven't seen any questions come through, so I think it means you've done a really good job at explaining it.
If I can add something, though, Chloe, as well. Obviously, we appreciate about next generation Wi-Fi, and that is, you know, the next topic, I guess, going forward. But we can support on that journey. So it's not just about are you ready to go or can you go to Wi-Fi 7. If you're wanting us to assist in looking at a Wi-Fi survey on site, we can do that, and we will do that as a greenfield. So we will look at what you're going or where you're going on the journey. So is your design fit for purpose today? What was it designed for back when? And we can look at where you need to go on that path. Or we could looking at currently what you have got deployed. If you have any black spots, how can we improve what is already been deployed to give you the maximum amount of your current investment? So you may already have technology out there that is already working, but it just needs to be tweaked. So, you know, there's not necessarily a discussion to say you need to do a full replacement, but if you're on that journey 5, 6, 6E or 7, you can probably leverage what you've already got and just maximize the investment that you've got already out it by just tweaking it slightly. So we can have, you know, those conversations as well around Wi-Fi survey or a health check within your current network.
Great, thank you. Again, there's no more questions that have come through. So thank you both very much for your time, and thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us. This is the first sort of virtual event of a small series that we're doing with Aruba. So we will be doing other webinars on Aruba ClearPass, Aruba Central, and Core and Edge switching. So more information on those will be included in the follow-up mail. I'll pop everyone back onto the tables. I'll ask Nick and Justin to kind of stay on table 1. So if you have any questions or want to discuss any requirements, if you want to find Nick and Justin on table 1, you can just double click on that table and it will move you over there. And we'll all be staying behind for a bit of networking. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll head back to the floor. Thank you.